It's a dark night. Dark night. It's a dark night.
Big things have small beginnings.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's movie review of Prometheus, starring Michael Fassbender and Charlize Theron. For years now, the Alien series has been the farthest thing from art. First, you had its lackluster sequels with the third and fourth film, and some of us are still trying to forget the AVP movies. To boot, when your characters are pasted onto everything including Coke and cereal boxes, you know it's not only sold out, but the farthest thing from being a project of the heart or of love. So when it was announced that Ridley Scott would be returning to the franchise with an origins tale, I was hyped alongside others. I mean, if the man who started the franchise couldn't save it, then nobody could. To boot, he has an excellent track record with understanding, fear, and science fiction, and could craft great work if left alone, and for the most part, he generally delivered. Prometheus tells a story of the original space crew who traveled through the deepest reaches of space before Ripley and her crew in an attempt to investigate the origins of life. Ancient markings on Earth create a map for our heroes to follow using the funds of the Weyland Corporation. As the crew arrives at their destination, things go naturally south in immoral and horrific ways. Now, the first thing that I would like to get out of the way is the notion that the film isn't scary. Yes, there are almost no scares. If not for the film's abortion scene, you would have not even had a fraction of tension, let alone any scares. And yes, the franchise has been known to be scary, especially with the first two entries. And while this is problematic for the film, it cannot take all the blame, and it is most certainly not Ridley Scott's fault. On multiple occasions, Scott has mentioned that Prometheus was not a scary or action-packed film, but instead a pure science fiction piece. It was the studio who decided to cut the trailers and promote it as a scary film, so if your expectations of being scared were not met and you happen to be upset by this, remember that it was the studios who misled you and not the director, because he went out of his way to clearly explain what genre his film fell into. We must also remember that the Alien franchise has always been half science fiction and half horror, so it's no shock to see a use of science fiction here, even if it's the whole movie. Speaking of this, what Scott has created is truly a great science fiction world and piece. The film is extremely sleek looking and boasts excellent cinematography. Set designs are just as slick and further assist with the film's glossy futuristic look. This is a damn good looking film all the way around. From the musky doom and gloom of the space jockey's tomb to the spaceship, everything in the film evokes its intended feelings, and it's done with a refined visual taste. Casting is also done fairly well, as no one really gives a bad performance, but strangely enough, it's Fassbender's supporting role that steals the show and generates interest as opposed to the film's main lead or love interest. The android David is one of the greater driving force for the film's notion of creation, God, the origin of life, and where we came from. He is also an interesting and even bleak look at humanity, science gone wrong, and the dangers of curiosity. Fassbender's subtle nuances and innocent approach to things makes him all the more interesting to watch, and even challenges the viewers to attempt to get into the character's head and try to find out his motives, since they are conflicted. Truly, this is a three-dimensional character with a good sense of depth. Our heroine, on the other hand, is fairly subpar in comparison, as well as the rest of the cast for that case. For our leading lady, we really don't know much about her. Yes, she is a scientist, and she wants to know where we came from, but what's her past? What about her relationship? Details of her discoveries, life before the deep freeze sleep. All of these are left unanswered, And while she does have an independent spirit and can fend for herself, she comes off as weaker in comparison to stronger female leads such as Ripley. Speaking of comparisons, try not to connect this too much to the Alien series, as those films are essentially their own separate things. Yes, they do take place in the same universe and feature some elements such as xenomorphs, but that's really about it. They barely connect to each other, and it's not really fair to fully compare this to Aliens. Of course, there are some things you can draw from, but don't take the whole film full sail if you get my drift. The rest of the cast consists of monster fodder, and honestly give nothing to the series. Love interest becomes infected by something that is not really explained well, and dies off after becoming a zombie. Again, not fully explained. Yes, we know that xenomorphs breed in people, but they've never created zombie-like beings, and these monsters are supposed to be different after all, so we can't apply the same rules to something different unless told or alluded to, which the film does neither. The rest of the supporting cast members get taken out in cliche ways, constantly seen in horror, so you've seen this type of stuff countless times, and is thus easy to predict. As mentioned before, there is no tension or dread, with the exception of one scene, which is the self-abortion scene, which is badass and all, but aside from that, don't expect much. Lighting and musical score is done fine, but the score is sparingly used. When used properly, silence can generate terror, but this is not the case. I did, however, love the movie's constant homages to the previous film entries, and it should also please lovers of the series too. Action is barely present in the film, but it is done fairly well when used, and the film has a good sense and use of humor with its writing and dialogue, and even manages to throw in a twist with the Weyland Corporation. Another stronger aspect of the film is its ability to be seen multiple times and remain consistent. There is so much to be seen and discussed in the film, you'll probably miss some stuff with one viewing, resulting in learning something new from the film despite second or third viewings. On the other side of the spectrum, its weakest aspect has to be its lack of explanation. Yes, I know that there are multiple films to be made, and that this is part of a new trilogy and a grander scheme to things. I am also aware that the details were left out on purpose, to be further explained in later installments, but there is only so much you can leave out before it becomes rather annoying and confusing. I'm not asking to be spoon-fed the story, but a balance between information and mystery would be nice, because this film has too much mystery going for it. I mean, you literally come out with as many questions after the movie as you did coming into the movie, and for some folks, even more. What exactly happened to the space jockeys? What were the new monsters? Who created us and why? What were the markings? Why did the space jockeys possibly create humans just to kill them? Why were they so hostile? How did the space jockeys meet their end? Who or what tore off all of their heads and why? Where are their attackers? What were the holotapes trying to show exactly? What were the space jockeys running away from in the holotape? I can go on forever with this, people. Point is that there always needs to be a sense of balance, and this film simply does not have it, but don't let that steer you away from the film. Is it amazing or great? No, not really. Is it scary or suspenseful? No. Is it a well-crafted science fiction film and exploration of life? Yes, and worth at least one watch from even the most distant of Alien fans. Prometheus gets a 7.5 out of 10.